السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون. الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. واللعنة الدائمة الباقية لأعدائهم بمنكر فضائلهم وغاصب حقوقهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: إن الذين يؤذون الله ورسوله لعنهم الله في الدنيا والآخرة وعد لهم عذابا مهينا. صلوات We've reached to almost the conclusion of the Azah of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Today being the day of Arbaeen. Since Thursday night, I started the series of the discussion about ziyarat, because when we look at the current situation in the Muslim world, one of the justification used by the Salafi and the Wahhabi ideology is that the Shias and the Sufis, especially the Sunni Sufis, they label them as mushrik and kafir on the basis of one of the reasons is this issue of ziyarat of the shrines and the graves of the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in different discussions that I had, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless those who are coming regularly. Others, of course, they will get the blessing, but there is a special dua for those who showed up every night, so that we can have this, continuity of the message on which I have been talking about ziyarat, other than the last 2 nights where we dedicated the majlis for the sanctity of the women and the children, especially Ahl Haram of Hussein bin Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. Ziyarat, the tradition, and even the text of the ziyarat that we recite when we go for the ziyarat or when we do the ziyarat from far away, these are the writings which have come to us from our imams. It is not a composition of the ulama. This is actually from the nas of the ma'soom. And there is a very powerful message in the ziyarat that we have. It basically corrects our aqidah, especially about the point of view that we have about imamat. It also has an impact on reforming our character if we do the ziyarat with understanding. And the method of ziyarat is also a kind of a tajdeed ahad, or renewal of our pledge to the madhab of Ahlul Bayt. We looked at especially the example of the ziyarat waris, which is recited almost on a weekly basis by most of the Shia centers. But let me, talk about one part of the ziyarat which I left out, and which is a common theme in most of the ziyarat, and that is the most controversial part, which I left it for tonight. But as a preamble to that, let me again emphasize this point of ziyarat, especially for ziyarat of Imam Hussein bin Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. The A'immah who came after Karbala, even they went through different, degrees of suffering. But it's amazing that when you look at the Imam, all the way from the 4th Imam to the 11th Imam, or even the present Imam, you will see that all of them remind us of not forgetting Karbala. And one way of not forgetting Karbala is to do the ziyarat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. If you pick up a book like Mafatihul Jinan, it's very interesting to see that, for example, on the first Rajab, there is a special ziyarat for Hussein bin Ali. Although it has nothing to do with him historically. It's not his wiladat or shahadat. When you look at 15th Rajab, again the makhsus ziyarat is for Hussein bin Ali. When you come to the month of Ramadan, when you do the Amal of Shab Qadr, historically it has nothing to do with Imam Hussein alayhi salam, but part of the Amal is they do the ziyarat of Hussein bin Ali. On the day of Eid al-Fitr, historically nothing to do with Hussein. But even on that day, the recommendation is, do you do the ziyarat of Hussein? On the day of Arafah, there is also a recommendation there. Eid al-Adha, there is a recommendation there. Until we come to the day of Ashura, that we understand. It is a day for Hussein. Or especially when we come to the issue of the ziyarat of Arbaeen. And this is where we see that all the Imams have always emphasized. They didn't talk about themselves or their forefathers who came after Karbala. They always say, remember the tragedy of Karbala. Do the ziyarat of Hussein bin Ali. And that is where you see the power of the ziyarat, that the people like Mutawakkil in the past and Saddam in the present, they wanted to prevent this process. Erase the signs, because they realize that there is benefit for the Shias in the ziyarat of Hussein bin Ali. Not only in the form of the sawab that we'll get in the akhirah. Otherwise they would have been very, very, pleased. Let's just keep them busy with this. No. They realize that, this is the identity of the Shia community. This is where they get the message of what they have to do in their lives. And this becomes a matter of threat for them. Otherwise, what does a shrine or a grave, why should be they threatened from it? You look at Ziyarat Arbaeen, the emphasis which has been there from Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salatu wasalam. The time in history is very important for us. 11th Imam is coming right at the dawn of the Ghaibat. He realizes now that the people will not be, they wouldn't have access to the Ma'soom Imam directly. During the Ghaibat al-Sughra and with Ghaibat al-Kubra, totally no access at all. And at that critical time in Shia history, Imam utters a statement where he says, when a mu'min, alamatul mu'min khamsa, signs of a mu'min are 5. Just think about it. We are coming to the conclusion of the era of the huzur and the presence of the Ma'soom Imams. Getting into the ghaibat now. An Imam could have selected any 5 things. But if you look at those 5 things, one of the 5 Imam, emphasized was Ziyaratul Arbaeen. The ziyarat of Hussein on the day of Arbaeen. And that's not necessarily ziyarat from far. It's actually going to the shrine of Hussein on the day of Arbaeen. And therefore you see the crowd there on Arbaeen is more than the day of Ashura. Because the 11th Imam says one of the signs of a mu'min is that you go for the ziyarat of Hussein ibn Ali on the day of Arbaeen. And mashallah, you look at the tradition of the Iraqis. As I said even earlier, it's not because, they don't have the money to travel on camels or cars and other vehicles. No. It was out of their devotion and their love that they started this tradition of walking from their villages and towns all the way to Karbala. And that itself became a matter of threat for people like Saddam. With the money and the wealth and everything that he had, he feels threatened by, unarmed civilian, Zaireen of Hussein bin Ali. And this is where you can realize the power of the ziyarat. Tomorrow in Karbala is the day of Arbaeen. They are a day behind us in their calendar for this month. And the numbers that we see, it's more than 20 million people. And they come there. There is no stampede. Nobody ever complains that they didn't get water or food or any problems there. And most of these Iraqis who come for ziyarat by walking, actually they do not stay in the city. They just go there, do the ziyarat, and start their walk back to their homes. And this is a very extraordinary, appeal which is there in the ziyarat of Hussein bin Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. Salawat. The ziyarat of Waris, the ziyarat of the day of Ashura, as well as the ziyarat of Arbaeen, it basically consists of about 2 or 3 themes. One is the issue of, grief and musibah. And then we have this element of wilayat and tawalla, expressing our love and devotion to the Imams, talking about Imam Hussein and his family. And then there is another element to it, of course, and that is the issue of Tajdeed Ahad, especially the ziyarat of Arbaeen, where there is a statement, where we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, oh Allah, make my mahyaya mahya Muhammad ala Muhammad wa mamati mamata Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Oh Allah, make my life and death the life and death of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Because when we talk about wilayat, it's not only words. We have to express that in our actions, in whatever we do, that our life and death becomes the reflection of the teachings of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. But one common theme in all the ziyarat that we have, and that is the issue I would like to talk tonight, is the most controversial issue, and that is the issue of the lanat. I left it for the last night, so if some people become upset, we can deal on email later on, inshallah. Salawat padh ekbar. But before I come to this whole issue, what is lanat? What is the meaning and the reality of this term in Islam? And what does it mean when we use these words in the ziyarat of the Ma'sumin regarding the enemies of Ahlul Bayt? Let me make a statement here, because we have very clear guidelines from the Maraja of our time. And I really would like to go back to the ziyarat Ashura, which has come from Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salatu wassalam. If you look at ziyarat Ashura and the message that the Maraja gave to us, our senior ulama, keeping the situation of the current situation of the Muslim world in mind, realizing the global nature of the world now, understanding the impact of media, sitting here in Masjid-e-Ali saying something is not confined to these 4 walls. It reaches everywhere. Looking at all these dimensions, our Maraja said that when you do the lanat, there are certain areas where you have to be discreet. I don't think I can use better term than that. And for this, I look at the example of our 5th Imam. Our 5th Imam was in Karbala. He was 4 or 5 years old. He is an eyewitness of what happened in Karbala. He is now giving us a ziyarat to be recited on the day of Ashura. Can anyone claim to be more Shia and more Azadar of Hussein than Imam Muhammad al-Baqir? No. But what does the Imam do? When he talks about those who are directly responsible for killing Imam Hussein, there are no issue of compromise there. The names have come very clearly in the ziyarat. But when we talk about the roots of the issues, Imam is discreet, doesn't use names. The message that we have to get from that Ziyarat Ashura, there is no day more emotional for a Shia than the day of Ashura as far as Hussein is concerned. And the Ma'soom Imam, who was himself a witness of that tragedy, uses discretion there in certain areas of Ziyarat, doesn't name anyone, but in other parts he gives the name. What else do we want? That is the path that we have to follow at the moment. But then, of course, the problem we have these days is there are some people who say, oh, Lanat itself totally should be eliminated from the madhab. And that's where we have serious problem. They say we should not curse anyone at all. And I'll come to this word curse. The problem is in this language. Because we have to understand what is la'nat. What is the meaning of the word la'nat and what is the reality of la'nat? This whole process, actually, la'nat by itself is not a concept independent. It is totally dependent on the concept of tawalla and tabarra. These are two sentiments that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created in the hearts of all human beings. Hub and bughz. Love and dislike or hatred. And these true elements are there. People can be politically correct and polite in denying it, but in their heart, if they look at it, they will see that yes, there is an element of hub and bughz in their lives. It depends. When we talk about hub, we are talking about the love for Allah and Rasul and the Ahlul Bayt and who are associated to them, those who follow them. When we talk about bughz, we are talking about disliking those who are known to be the enemies of Allah, Rasul and the Ahlul Bayt. And those who consider those enemies to be okay. And this is not something, uncivilized, or, against the character of a good human being. You just talk to the people of North America and Europe and say to them, what is your feelings about Hitler? What is your feelings about Hitler's? Do you like him? No. Do you dislike him? Yes. Do you have hatred towards a person who was responsible, according to their own history, 6 million, people were burnt or killed? They have that. To the extent that many laws in the Western countries now say even denying the Holocaust is a crime. Isn't that tabarra? What is it? To deny what Hitler had done in history becomes a crime by itself. There the freedom of expression goes out the window, on that issue. And that is actually expression of this bughz of the modern man in the Western world, especially towards what Hitler had done. For us, Karbala is the same. Do not ever ask us to have any, soft, part in our heart for Yazid and Muawiyah and Ali Abi Sufyan. And this is where we have to realize that when we talk about the issue of, la'nat, it is actually not, the way it is translated in English. The problem actually is the issue of, the word curse. This is not the meaning of curse. Let me just, explain one more thing before I go to the meaning itself. When we talk about hub and bughz, when we talk about like and dislike, when we talk about love and hatred, we are not talking about hating a person or disliking a person because of their color or language or nationality or their race. No. We are talking here about bughz, about because of the actions of those individuals. We are not against Yazid because he was Arab, or from Banu Umayyah and Quraysh, or he was maybe brown or black or white, or he was rich or poor, or he spoke Arabic or Farsi or Roman language. No. If these become the basis of your hatred or dislike of anyone, then that is tabi'iz, that is ta'assub, that is discrimination, and that's haram. Even the Sharia says that's haram. But when you talk about a person like Yazid and what he has done, it is his actions and behavior which becomes the basis of our bughz, then this is absolutely part of the nature that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created within us. In Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this concept, on three different levels. When it comes to the heart, in Surah Hujurat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ayat number 7, He says, وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانَ وَزَيَّنَهُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. When it comes to, Iman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, habbaba is from hub, love. Allah made Iman the beloved for you. وَزَيَّنَهُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. And He made it a zinat, a decoration for your heart and your soul. So Iman is connected to the heart. And then He says, وَكَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكُفْرُ وَالْفُسُوقُ وَالْعِصْيَانِ. And He has made it makruh, disliked, hated. What? Kufr, fusuq, and nisyan. These three things are makruh. Allah has made it makruh in our hearts. Iman has become mahboob. These are two opposites. One is hub and other is karahat. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the level of heart is talking about it. When it comes to the actions, and this is what I'll say to our own brothers and sisters of Iman. Tabarra doesn't only mean uttering the la'nat by words. Tabarra also means disliking the actions of those who are zalimeen of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Tabarra also means not being like them in what they were doing. Those of you here on Saturday's Majlis, we talked about this hadith from Imam Raza alayhi salam, where he actually described this scene from Sham, where Yazid had that, the head of Imam Hussein on the plate. And he spilled the blood, the wine on it. And Imam then uses that and he says, Imam Raza alayhi salam says, any Shia who believes in Hussein, any Shia who is Azadar of Hussein, if he keeps that picture in his mind, he will never go towards the wine and alcohol. This is another element of tabarra in action. And then we come to the third one, tabarra in speech. And this is where the issue of lanat comes in. People don't have a problem to like or dislike somebody in the heart. People don't have a problem if we say we don't like the actions of Yazid and we don't want to be like him. But when we use the word lanat, that's where the problem starts. And this is where we have to understand what is lanat. Lanat is not curse, as used in the street language here in North America. This is not the correct translation of the word as far as the Arabic is concerned. The Arabic, term for curse is not lan, it is sab, gali dena. See, the problem is we are not taught our children the language properly. We use the translation of lanat as curse, and we tell our own children, don't curse. So they say, well, you're telling us not to do curse, and then you are doing curse here. Well, this is the problem. So language is one problem. La'nat is not curse. The proper translation in Arabic for curse is sab. Gali dena. And when it comes to the issue of, la'nat, la'nat is actually a negative dua. It is totally different. It is a dua, but it is of a negative type of dua. In Urdu, we have a term, bad dua, isn't it? What is bad dua? Translate that in English, bad dua. It's almost same. Bad dua and bad dua. That is la'nat. And what does it mean? It means we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah may deprive the mal'oon from His mercy. You know, when we talk about English term, there is a word known as benediction, where you pray for somebody in a positive sense. Opposite of that in English is malediction. Benediction is dua, malediction is bad dua. Benediction is dua, malediction is la'nat. Where you are praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah may deprive His mercy and His rahmat and forgiveness from that person. So it's nothing to do with the issue of the word curse, which in Arabic would be sab. Interestingly, if you look at the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has talked about this issue of sab only once in Quran. And the ayat is very interesting, very much in line with the message that our Maraji have given to us in this context, where it says, وَلَا تَسُبُّوا الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ فَيَسُبُّ اللَّهُ عَدْوًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. And this is in Surah number 6, ayat number 108. Only once Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not do sab. La tasabbu. Sab to whom? Think about it. Islam is a religion based on Tawheed. Totally opposed to shirk and idol worshipping. In this ayat, interestingly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, La tasubbu alladhina yad'una min dunillah. Do not curse. Let me use the word curse here in the meaning of gali dena. Sab karna. Do not curse the idols that they worship besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Islam abhors, idol worshipping. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't like the idols. But He says, do not curse them. Argue against idol worshipping. Give hujjats and arguments that this is wrong. You as a human being are humiliating yourself by bowing down to a statue of stone or wood. But do not curse their idols. Why? فَيَسُبُّ اللَّهُ عَدْوًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. Because in return they will curse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what our Maraja are saying. Don't curse them in the meaning of gali. Otherwise, in return, they will do the same thing for our imams. But when it comes to the issue of la'nat, there are countless ayat of Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has talked about la'nat. When you put this ayat alongside the ayat about la'nat, you come to realize that according to Quranic point of view, sab is different from la'nat and la'nat is different from sab. So do not confuse the issue of curse with the issue of la'nat. Salawat padne par. Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do la'nat? Yes. And there is a difference there. When we do the la'nat, it is bad dua. When Allah does the la'nat, He is not doing dua. It is actually declaration that I will deprive this person from my mercy. Just when we do the salawat, we say Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. But Quran also says that Allah also does salawat. Our salawat is dua. Allah's salawat is not dua. It is declaration of the rahmat and barakat on Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. 37 places in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done la'nat for different kinds of people. Just 3 examples here. Ala la'natullahi ala zalimeen. May the la'nat of Allah be on those who are zalimeen. And then you can, fill in the wherever it fits. Another example, man yaqtul mu'minan muta'ammidan, whoever kills a mu'min without any justification. It's not in retaliation for a murder that he might have committed. فَجَزَاؤُهُ جَهَنَّمْ خَالِدًا فِيهَا. His punishment is that he will be in Jahannam forever. I don't know those who say that Yazid radiallahu anhu, what they think about. Quran says that if somebody kills an innocent mu'min, his jaza is Jahannam forever. And Hussein is not just a mu'min, he is Sayyid al-Shabab Ahl al-Jannah. So the ayat goes on. وَمَنْ يَقْتُلْ مُؤْمِنًا مُتَعَمِّدًا فَجَزَاؤُهُ جَهَنَّمَ خَالِدًا فِيهَا غَضِبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَلَعَنَهُ. He will be in Jahannam forever, and Allah's wrath would be on him, and Allah's la'anat would be on him. When it comes to normal kafirin who are kafir knowingly, inna Allah la'ana al-kafirin. And so there's 37 places where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done la'anat. But then we'll be told, well, this is only for Allah. Who gives us the right to make the judgment and to do la'nat on another human being? Some of the more learned people use this argument. Oh, we have to be humanitarian. We have to have that compassion. Well, we have example. Just one example from the Anbiya of the past. In Surah Ma'idah at 78, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلُعِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلِ عَلَى لِسَانِ دَاوُودَ وَعِيسَى بْنَ مَرْيَمَ. Those from Bani Israel who became kafir, lu'ina. The la'nat was done ala lisani Dawood wa Isa ibn Maryam, on the tongue of Prophet Dawood as well as Nabi Isa alayhi salam. What about our Prophet? Has he done the la'nat? Sometimes people say he's rahmatan lil alameen. We have to follow his example. Yes, he's rahmatan lil alameen. But that rahmat doesn't mean that when a zalim kills somebody who is innocent, that the rahmat also extend there. That is actually insult of the concept of rahmat. Whether it's the rahmat of Allah or the rahmat of Rasulullah. You look at this whole incident of Mubahala. When the Nasara of Najran came, Rasulullah used logical arguments to say that, we do not believe that Isa is son of God. Knowing that, we believe that Isa was born without a father. And this is where the rational argument comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the Prophet. Say to them that the example of Isa is the example of Adam. Adam was created without father and mother. At least Isa had a mother. If Isa becomes son of God because he doesn't have a father, then maybe, Adam would become brother of God because he didn't even have a mother. If you use your, logic in that way. They didn't have any answer. And they refused to accept the arguments of Islam at that time. And that is where the Prophet then basically challenged them for mubahala. And what does mubahala mean? Another word in Arabic for mubahala is mula'ana, mutual la'nat, where both parties will come And they will pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send His la'nat on the group which is liar of the two. And this is where, the ayat goes on where He says, فَنَدْعُوا أَبْنَاءَنَا وَأَبْنَاءَكُمْ, and at the end, ثُمَّ نَبْتَهِلْ, we'll do mubahala, فَنَجْعَلْ لَعْنَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَاذِبِينَ, and we will seek Allah's la'nat on the liar of the two groups. Rasulullah, according to the wordings of the Quran, I can't go details in that event. He could have brought many, many people. But the whole purpose where that Rasul will do the dua, those who are with him will do the Ameen, and the la'nat would be on Kazibeen. Rasul didn't want anyone who even in a remote way is linked to Kizb and lying or Kufr and Shirk. And therefore, even for his own security, he took only those who were totally away from Kizb and who were totally embodiment of Sidq and truth. And so we only brought Fatima and Ali and Hassan and Hussein with him. Salawat padhne ke baad. Another example where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the people together do the la'nat. This is Surah Baqarah, 159. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَكْتُمُونَ مَا أَنزَلْنَا مِنَ الْبَيِّنَاتِ وَالْهُدَى مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا بَيَّنَّاهُ لِلنَّاسِ فِي الْكِتَابِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that those to whom we have sent clear proof and guidance, and yet they conceal that. It says that this ayah has a far-reaching implications. Those who conceal the truth, أُولَٰئِكَ يَلْعَنُهُمُ اللَّهُ, Allah does la'nat on them, وَيَلْعَنُهُمُ اللَّاعِنُونَ, and the people also do la'nat on them. This is where now you see it's not Anbiya and Mursaleen, Allah and the people are together on those who actually conceal the haqq and the truth from the people. And then we go on. Did the Prophet ever did lanat on individuals specifically by name? We have a narration from Sahih Bukhari and from none other than Hazrat Abu Huraira, where he says, "Come to me, I will show you the complete namaz of Rasulullah." And in describing that namaz of Rasulullah, he says that in the last rakat of the Isha prayer and the last rakat of Subha prayer, the Prophet used to do qunut, yaqnut. He used to do qunut. فَيَدْعُ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَيَلْعَنِ الْكُفَّارِ. He will do dua for the mu'mineen and he will do la'nat for the kuffar. Another narration, and this is from many historians, including the famous Tabari, where they say that once the Prophet was sitting while Abu Sufyan came riding on his camel. But he was not alone. His two sons, Muawiyah and the other one, was with him. And one of them was actually holding the rein of the camel in the front, walking in the front. And the other was at the back of the camel, pushing the camel to move fast. And Rasulullah looked at them. And the Rasul says, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ الْقَائِدَ وَالسَّائِقْ وَالرَّاكِبْ. May Allah send His la'nat, deprive His mercy from al-qa'id, the one who is leading, was-sa'iq, the one who is at the back, and the one who is sitting on the camel. This is Rasul. So don't tell me to take these words out from Ziyarat Ashura. Balaguri, a very famous historian, in his book Ansab al-Ashraf, he actually narrates a narration from them where he says one day, Ista'adhana al-Hakam bin Abil As. This is the father of Marwan bin Hakam. He one day came to the house of the Prophet and asked for permission to come in to see him. Rasulullah, when he was told that Hakam bin As is there, bin Abil As, the Prophet says, "I'idhanu lahu," allow him to come in. لعن الله عليه وعلى من خرج من صلبه إلا المؤمنين. May Allah send His la'nat on him and those who come from his descendants except those who are mu'mineen among them. وَقَلِيلٌ مَاهُمْ, and those who will be mu'mineen from his descendants will be very few. يُشْرِفُونَ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَيَتَّضِعُونَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ. They will gain glory in this dunya, but they will be totally humiliated in the akhirah. This is the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What about Amir al-Mu'minin Ali? Ali didn't like sab. In the Battle of Siffin, there is actually a narration in Nahj al-Balagha where some of the companions of Ali were, cursing in the common meaning of the word. The soldiers of Muawiyah and Sham. And when Ali heard about it, he said, don't do this. I don't want to see my people to be sabbabeen. You see, he is forbidding sab, gali dena. Whether it's in the battlefield or the battlefield of ideas, member. By using abusive language, we are actually, putting ourselves down. Criticize them according to their ideas. Criticize them because of their actions. And I think that is the powerful weapon that we have. We don't need to resort to that abusive language at all. But when it comes to the la'an, in the meaning of bad dua, no, even Amir al-Mu'minin used to do this. This is a narration from Ibn Kathir in Tarikh Kamil, as well as Tarikh Tabari. Where after the event of Siffin, Amir al-Mu'minin had this hatred, if I may use that term, against the leaders of that group. And according to a narration that they have, they said he used to do the qunut, فَيَقُولُ اللهم لعن معاوية وعمر وعبد الأعور وحبيبا وعبد الرحمن بن خالد والزحاق بن قيس والوليد. This is Muawiyah and his group. He actually used to name them in the bad dua that he used to do in the qunut of his namaz. And so we have this tradition, from the Quran, from the seerah of the Prophet, seerah of the Ahlul Bayt, but always use that discreet method that we have learned from Ziyarat Ashura of the fifth Imam, and even from the statements of Amir al-Mu'minin in Nahj al-Balagha. Salawat. Let me conclude in English with just one more remark. That the Salafis and the Wahhabis sometimes use this issue to say that whoever does la'an on the early companions or the early Muslims of the history, then they have become kafir. If the Salafis and the Wahhabis really are true to their ideology, then they will have to label many Sahaba as kafir because they used to do la'anat on one another. So before using that label on us and justifying your killing of the Shias, think about it yourself. If they have gone, to war against one another, they killed one another, they use the words of la'an against one another, and yet you are saying they are okay. If they are okay, then we are okay. There shouldn't be a problem there. The rules are same for the early Muslims and the later Muslims. You can't say there were special, privileges there and not here. And this is where we have to realize that, this is actually not a justification for what is happening against the Shias in Afghanistan or in Iraq and Syria. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep the Zawar of Imam Hussein, especially tomorrow in Karbala, in his safety, and keep these, the attacks of the Takfiri forces away from the Mu'minin and the Muslim world, inshallah. Salawat padhne par aao. ہمارے دین اور مذہب کی بنیاد محبت ہے، لیکن اگر دل میں اللہ، رسول اور آل محمد کی محبت ہو تو پھر جو دشمنان اللہ، رسول اور آل محمد ہیں ان کے لیے جگہ نہیں ہوگی دل میں. یہ تو خداوند عالم نے کہا ہے کہ دل میں ایک ہی کی جگہ ہوتی ہے، یا وہی لوگ ہیں جو ایک دوسرے سے جڑے ہوئے ہیں، دو کی جگہ نہیں ہوگی. وہ الوہیت کی بات ہے. یہ نہیں ہو سکتا ہے کہ آپ حسین کو بھی مانیں اور یزید کو بھی صحیح کہیں. It doesn't work that way. اور اسی لیے ہماری زیارات میں کہا جاتا ہے، زیارت عاشورہ ہو یا دوسری زیارات ہو، جہاں تک امام حسین علیہ السلام کا معاملہ ہے، ہم تمام مسلمانوں سے چاہیں گے وہ ہمارے ساتھ مل کے یزید اور آل ابو سفیان پر لعنت کریں. اور ہمارا یہ تقاضا جو ہے یہ بے جا نہیں ہے. اگر آپ قرآن کو مانتے ہیں، اگر اس آیت کو مانتے ہیں جس میں خداوند عالم نے یہ کہا ہے قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى، اگر مودت اہل قربہ کے آپ قائل ہیں تو آپ کے دل میں دشمنان قربہ کے لیے محبت اور نرم گوشہ نہیں ہو سکتا ہے. یہ جو پورا معاملہ ہے لعنت کا، مشکل یہ ہے کہ ہمارے یہاں ممبر سے بھی ان باتوں کو کلیئرلی بیان نہیں کیا جاتا ہے. بیان ہوتا ہے لیکن وہ ذرا اس عنوان سے نہیں کہ جہاں آپ اس زمانے کے جوان اور پڑھے لکھے لوگوں کو آپ قائل کر سکیں. There is one coin. One side of the coin کیا ہے؟ صلوات ہے، دعا ہے. اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد. یونیورسلی تمام مسلمانوں کے لیے یہ لازمی ہے، سب تشہد میں پڑھتے ہیں. لیکن یہی کوئن کا دوسرا سائیڈ ہے، اور قرآن میں بھی یہ دونوں آیتیں ایک ساتھ ساتھ آئی ہیں. اس کو اس طرح سے بیان نہیں کیا جاتا ہے. یہ مشہور آیت جو آپ پڑھتے رہتے ہیں، ان اللہ وملائکتہ یصلون علی النبی یا ایھا الذین آمنوا صلوا علیہ وسلموا تسلیما. یہ سورہ احزاب کی آیت نمبر 56 ہے. اس میں کیا اعلان ہو رہا ہے کہ یقیناً اللہ اور اللہ کے ملائکہ نبی اور آل نبی پر صلوات بھیجتے ہیں. اللہ کی صلوات کا مطلب یہ ہے ڈکلریشن ہے رحمت کا. ملائکہ اور مومنین کی صلوات کا جو حکم دیا جا رہا ہے یہ دعا ہے کہ خدا بندہ اپنی رحمت و برکات محمد آل محمد پر نازل کر. That's one side of the coin. اس کے بعد والی آیت پڑھیں. دوسری آیت ہے ان الذین یؤذون اللہ ورسولہ. وہ لوگ جو اللہ اور اللہ کے رسول کو اذیت پہنچاتے ہیں. فوراً بعد والی آیت ہے. رسول کو اذیت کیسے، اللہ کو اذیت کس طرح سے پہنچا سکتا ہے کوئی؟ Can somebody do anything to him? No. اللہ کو اذیت کا مطلب یہ ہے کہ رسول کو اذیت پہنچائیے تو اللہ کو بھی اذیت پہنچتی ہے نسبت کی بنیاد پہ. اور رسول کو اذیت دینا، جب رسول کہتے ہیں لحمہم لحمی و دمہم دمی حسین منی وانا من حسین، آل محمد کو آپ اذیت دیں گے تو آپ نے رسول کو اذیت دی ہے. رسول کو اذیت پہنچائی ہے تو آپ نے در حقیقت خداوند عالم کو اذیت دی ہے. اور اس کا نتیجہ کیا ہے؟ ان الذین یؤذون اللہ ورسولہ لعنہم اللہ فی الدنیا والآخرہ. خداوند عالم ان پر دنیا میں بھی اور آخرت میں بھی لعنت نازل کرتا ہے. وعد لهم عذابا مہینا، اور خداوند عالم نے ان کے لیے سخت عذاب آخرت میں مہیا کیا ہے. تو در حقیقت وہیں پہ جہاں قرآن میں صلوات کا حکم ہے، وہاں محمد و آل محمد کو اذیت دینے والوں کے لیے بھی خدا کی لعنت کا ذکر ہے. آپ صلوات کو لعنت سے الگ نہیں کر سکتے ہیں. یہ ایک ہی سکہ ہے، ایک طرف صلوات ہے، دوسری طرف لعنت کا سلسلہ ہے. صلوات پڑھنے کے بعد اسی لیے تمام زیارات میں آپ دیکھتے ہیں فلعن اللہ امتا قتلتک ولعن اللہ امتا ظلمتک. قتل کرنے والے جو ڈائریکٹلی انوالوڈ ہیں، جنہوں نے ان قاتلین کو بھیجا ہے، انسائٹ کیا ہے، انکریج کیا ہے، سپورٹ کیا ہے، وہ ظالمین ہیں. وَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً ظَلَمَتْكَ. نہ صرف وہ بلکہ صدیوں کے بعد آنے والے جو حسین کے موقف پر اعتراض کریں، یزید کے عمل کو صحیح مانیں، ان پر بھی وہ جملہ آتا ہے وَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً سَمِّيَتْ بِذَلِكَ. واقعات کربلا کو سننے کے بعد فَرَضِيَتْ بِهِ، اس پر راضی ہوں، ان کو بھی انہی کے ساتھ محشور کیا جائے گا. لہٰذا یہ سلسلہ جو ہے اتنا آسان نہیں ہے. لیکن آخر میں ہم وہی خلاصہ آپ کے سامنے پیش کرنا چاہیں گے کہ پانچویں امام کی مثال کو ذہن میں رکھیں. ان کی خاطر اپنی زبان کو گندا مت کریں. ایک مومن کی زبان جو ہے اس سے محترم ہے کہیں کہ آپ ان کے خاطر جو ہے اپنی زبان کو گندا کریں. کرنا ہے تو وہ دعا پڑھیں جو بد دعا ہے، لعنت کے معنوں میں ہے، اور اسی عنوان سے آپ ان کو کنڈیم کریں. زیارات میں بھی اسی عنوان سے آیا ہے، اور یہ ہمارے مذہب کا ایک بنیادی مسئلہ ہے جس کو ائمہ نے بار بار اس کو دہرایا ہے. قرآن کے اعتبار سے بھی یہی ہے. بات صرف قتل کی نہیں ہے. اگر حسین کے ساتھ آپ کو سیاسی اختلاف تھا، اگر حسین کے ساتھ مان لیجئے مذہبی اعتبار سے بھی کوئی اختلاف تھا، جنگ ہوئی، حسین نے انکار کیا ہم بیعت نہیں کریں گے، جنگ ہوئی آپ حسین کو قتل کر دیتے، بات وہاں پہ ختم ہو جانی چاہیے تھی. لیکن آپ کو اتنا بھی احترام نہیں رہا کہ یہ نواسے رسول ہے، ایک مومن کے لاش کو پامال کرنا حرام ہے. یہ تو رسول اللہ کا خون ہے. لحمہم لحمی و دمہم دمی. لیکن آپ نے حسین پہ ظلم کیا، بات وہاں پہ بھی ختم ہو جانی چاہیے تھی. لیکن نہیں، آپ نے رسول کے نواسیوں کا بھی احترام نہیں کیا. ان کے سامان اور اثاثے کو لوٹا ہے، ان کے زیورات کو لوٹا ہے، ان کی چادروں کو لوٹا ہے، ان کے خیموں میں آگ لگا دیتا ہے، اور اس کے بعد انہیں اسیر اور قیدی بنا کے کوفہ اور شام کے دربار میں اور بازار میں مجرموں کی طرح پیش کیا جاتا ہے. عزاداران حسین وہ منظر تھا جس کو امام زین العابدین علیہ السلام کبھی بھول نہیں سکے. جب یہ قافلہ کربلا سے چلا ہے اور شہر مدینہ کے قریب جب آئے ہیں، عجیب اہتمام ہے. آپ دیکھیں کہ امام زین العابدین نے کہا بشیر سے، بشیر ہم اپنے شہر میں اس طرح سے وارد ہونے والے نہیں ہیں. خیمہ نصب کیا گیا، قافلے کو روکا گیا شہر کے باہر. امام نے کہا بشیر سے کہ تمہارے والد شاعر تھے، کیا تم بھی کچھ کلام کہتے ہو کہ نہیں؟ اس نے کہا ہم کوشش کرتے ہیں. امام نے کہا کہ جا مدینے والوں کو خبر کرو کہ ہم آ گئے. عزاداران حسین یہ مجلس کا سلسلہ وہیں سے شروع ہو جاتا ہے، شام میں ہوا ہے اب مدینہ میں۔ بشیر جاتا ہے روضہ رسول کے باہر کھڑے ہونے کے بعد، اعلان کرتا ہے کہ مدینے والے اب یہ مدینہ جو ہے رہنے کی جگہ نہیں ہے، اس لیے کہ حسین کا لاشا کربلا میں ہے، لیکن سر جو ہے نو کے نیزہ پر ایک شہر سے دوسرے شہر اور ایک دیار سے دوسرے دیار میں پھیرایا جا رہا ہے۔ جیسے ہی یہ عنوان جو ہے پھیلا ہے مدینہ میں، تمام لوگ جو اپنے گھروں سے نکل کے آتے ہیں، اور بشیر سے جو پوچھا تم یہ کیا کہہ رہے ہو، اس نے کہا کہ امام سجاد کا قافلہ آ چکا ہے، شہر کے باہر وہ انتظار میں ہیں۔ عزاداران حسین سبھی لوگ چلے ہیں، لیکن خصوصاً بنی ہاشم کے جو افراد ابھی باقی تھے، یہ دوڑتے ہوئے وہاں پہنچتے ہیں۔ بشیر کا کہنا ہے کہ ہم اپنے گھوڑے پر سوار ہو کے جب واپس پہنچے ہیں، اتنا ازدحام تھا کہ ہمیں گھوڑے سے اترنا پڑا۔ مجمع کو چیرتے ہوئے جب ہم قریب پہنچتے ہیں تو ہم نے دیکھا کہ ایک کرسی رکھی گئی تھی اور امام سجاد خیمے سے نکلے، اس کرسی پر آ کے بیٹھ جاتے ہیں، اور جب لوگ قریب آنے لگے، جب نظر جاتی ہے امام سجاد کی محمد حنفیہ پر، عزاداران حسین جب غریب الوطن میں غریب الوطنی میں کسی پر اگر مصائب ٹوٹتے ہیں، خصوصاً اگر بیوی اور بچے ساتھ ہوں، تو وہ شخص خود بس صبر کر لیتا ہے، لیکن وطن لوٹنے کے بعد جب کسی بزرگ سے ملاقات ہوتی ہے، صبر کا پیمانہ لبریز ہو جاتا ہے۔ امام محمد حنفیہ سے گلے ملے، بہت دیر تک روتے رہے، وہ کہتے رہے چچا جان میرے بابا کو قتل کر دیا گیا، پورے کنبے کو قتل کر دیا گیا، ہمارے اہل حرم کو اسیر اور قیدی بنایا گیا، ترک اور دیلم کے کفار کی طرح ہماری نمائش کربلا اور کوفہ اور شام میں کی گئی۔ عزاداران حسین بیویاں جب وہاں پہنچی ہیں اور جب محملوں کے قریب آئی ہیں، عجب نہیں کہ بیویوں نے پہلے جا کے رباب سے پوچھا ہوگا کہ رباب وہ ششما جس کو لے کے گئی تھی وہ کہاں ہے، لیکن وہ دکھیا ماں اپنی خالی گود بتاتی ہے۔ پھر یہ قافلہ جب آگے بڑھا ہے اور شہر میں وارد ہوا، جناب زینب امام سجاد سے کہتی ہے کہ بیٹا ہم پہلے گھر نہیں جائیں گے، پہلے روضے رسول کی زیارت کے لیے جائیں گے۔ وہاں پہنچنے کے بعد جناب ام کلثوم اور زینب نے جو ایک مرثیہ پڑھا ہے، اس میں ایک خطاب پہلے شہر مدینہ سے ہے کہ اے شہر مدینہ ہمیں قبول نہ کرنا، اس لیے کہ جب ہم اس شہر کو چھوڑ کے گئے تھے میرے ساتھ مرد اور جوان بھی تھے، آج ہم لوٹ کے آئے ہیں اور سوائے خواتین کے اور کوئی نہیں۔ اور اس کے بعد قبر رسول سے مخاطب ہوتی ہے کہ اے رسول اپنے نواسے کا پرسہ قبول کرے، آپ کی نواسیوں کو قیدی اور اسیر بنایا گیا، لیکن آخر میں جناب زینب مخاطب ہوتی ہے اس قبر کی طرف جو فاطمہ کی قبر تھی، وہاں بس ایک جملہ کہا، اس پر مجلس ختم، فرماتی ہے ماں فاطمہ اکثر آپ کہتی تھی کہ بابا کے بعد اتنے مصائب ٹوٹے ہیں کہ اگر دن پر ٹوٹے تو رات میں بدل جائیں گے، فاطمہ کاش آپ ہوتی، ہمارے مصائب کو دیکھتی، ہمارے مصائب آپ کے مصائب سے کئی گنا تھے۔ خصوصاً سکینہ کو یاد کرتی ہے کہ جب بھی تازیانہ کھاتی تھی اپنے بابا کو پکارتی تھی، لیکن کوئی جواب دینے والا